Safe hands.
Safe hands.
Safe hands.
We're in.
Nobody will be harmed because of me, Chris Clough.
I love the. I got a couple hearts last week off of when I posted our podcast. So that the podcast that comes and goes as it pleases had some. I won't not necessarily let's say positive feedback, but I think people are
They
getting it.
get it?
They get it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's nice that they get it. Um, it's funny when I sat down today to talk with you on the on ramp, I can see my notes here from season 3, episode 4, which I've not touched. And this is a perfect example of what you and I were talking about before we hit record, before you hit record, because dare I touch the controls.
Safe
Um,
hands.
Safe hands. You know how I was telling you the world seems to be passing by, and I'm
Yes.
just standing there in my classroom watching it happen? Well, here's the thing. I haven't got anywhere near touching this podcast from last week. Nowhere near turning on this computer and, taking the video, turning it into audio, writing the blog post, and pushing it all out. Not even close to coming near this computer. That's what this week has been like.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really, really don't like being busy. It's just there's a lot of things that start to rub up against each other. You know what I
Shape
mean?
that out a little bit. Shape that out. That's because it is because there's nuance to that, isn't there? Like it's not just is it just the is it the impact of busy or is it busy because like being
Well, here,
kept
okay,
busy
let's
is
break it down.
yeah.
Let's, like you said, my son plays competitive hockey. My one son plays competitive hockey, so he has hockey 4 to 5 times a week. Now, if it's a 6:30 a.m. practice, no problem. It just means I have to wake up earlier. But then, so that's okay in the morning, right? But then the whole morning's taken up because I'm not at home doing the things I normally do while he's on the ice. Then I got to get him home to get him to school, and that in and of itself is circus-like or can be. But when you look at after-school practices, they're not at a good time, like in terms of they're at 5 o'clock, and my school day ends at 3:45. I have to get him there for 4:30. So you can see the world starts to shrink, right? Like nothing else matters except that timeline where I need to get out of my building, get home, get him, and get him to where he needs to be at the time that he's committed to being there at. But not only is there that, my wife has a life too. It's like she has appointments, she has to stay after school to do stuff. Like she has her world, which is part of my world. So me getting the kid to a place, that's one piece of the puzzle. And that's the piece that I take care of. But then there's another kid who's sitting at home who needs to be fed, right? Who needs to be looked after. And so then it becomes one of these, okay, what's happening on Tuesday night? Well, Will has hockey at 5. Okay, well, I have an appointment at this time. What's going to happen with Ben? And it's like it takes up mental space, right? Mental time, mental energy to figure it all out. And then you have to execute. So here's another example. And I know maybe it doesn't seem clear to people. It's just one of those things where if someone says to me, "Hey, do you have 10 minutes after school today?" If my son has hockey, the answer is no, I don't. If my son doesn't have hockey, then the answer is yes, I do. And then I can attend to that. And then I still get home. And when I get home, I'm always 3 steps behind because my kids have been at home for like an hour. My wife has been home for, 40 minutes. So home life is happening, it's rolling, and I'm walking into a time bomb because it's ready to go off when I'm walking in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, somebody wants to do something with us. Like, I got to get my driveway sealed. So this guy keeps messaging me and saying, "Can I come talk to you on this day? Can I come talk to you on this day?" No. And finally he's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "My kid plays rep hockey, so I can't meet with you before dark because I go straight from work to home to literally grab him, put him in the car and leave. And then when I get home, We could meet, but you know, it's supper time.
Dude's got to be prepared to follow you.
Well,
Like, just basically track with you, like around your house or around whatever you're getting done.
this is how it ended up. It ended up with, why don't you just come over whenever you please, look at the driveway,
Yeah.
tell me what you need to do, and let's go from there. And he's like, right on. He says, no problem. I just wanted to meet with you. I'm like, hey, I would love to meet with you too. But here's the thing. The last time we were supposed to meet was at 7:30. Well, he's like, it's dark, bro. I can't see your stuff. It's dark. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
100% I agree with you. So that's when I said, dude, I don't need to meet you face to face. I've heard about your work from people I know and trust. So let's just go with an estimate. Let's go from there. He's like,
Yep.
okay. But it's stuff like that, right? Like it's stuff like that that for me, nothing else exists except what I need to do for my kid on those days. But that you can't live like that. Other things are happening. You know, one night we were booked. We had a three-way conflict. We were supposed to be in three different places at the same time.
That's hard.
Well, you know, one of them had to go. So I kept one, Sarah kept one, and we divided and conquered, and then one had to just be let go. So I feel like the choices I'm making at home, they take time, they take energy, they take space, and nothing else seems to matter. So it's busy. Like it's not I'm not a guy who wants to be busy. I'm not a guy that I do not thrive off that. I do not feel important when I look at my calendar and there's 8,000 things. There are 8,000 things that need to be done on my calendar, and that's just the way it is. It's not that I want it to be like that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I do.
I don't. I don't. So um, I brought, like today, I brought home my bag of work, but it's not in a bag because I refuse to put it in a bag because of our bag of work concept. I brought home a bunch of stuff, and it's stuff like I'm actually looking forward to dealing with.
I feel like you just shifted from one branding to another. So we're not gonna call it bag of work. We're gonna euphemize. We're gonna take our job, euphemize it one step and call it bag of work. And then we're gonna take bag of work and euphemize it one step further and call it bunch of stuff. it makes it easier to deal with, eh?
Yeah,
Or
a
go
little
where
bit.
you're going because I catch you. I because I like what you're saying next about this.
Well, like there's stuff that I'm excited to look at. Like my kids this week did a math performance task and a science performance task, and I conferenced with every single kid, and I made crazy notes. So now what I need to do is I need to look at my notes, I need to look at their work, and I need to bridge the two, and I need to make a judgment, right? I'm doing evaluation really. And I hate doing it this way. I like doing it with the child, but my saving grace is that I did my conference and I collected my data. So when I look at the rubric, I can say with confidence whether based on my conference and the work the kid has done, I can say what level this student showed me at that moment in time because of my notes.
Yep.
So this weekend, I wanted to put all that together so that I could have information to send home to parents and let inform them. This is how your child did in this unit. This is how your child did in this unit. We're moving on. Um, and like, so yesterday we went out for dinner as a family. Last night was the first night in a while where we didn't have any other commitments, so we go out to eat. So we're sitting there, we're eating. My son says to me, so I'm telling him, he's like, I got to get my skates sharpened. I said, no problem. Tomorrow morning after the podcast, I will go get your skates sharpened. Oh, don't forget, I have the birthday party tomorrow. And I'm mid wing. Like I've got the food, like I'm about to crunch into my beautiful chicken wing. And he says, and I have the birthday party tomorrow.
Zing.
Oh, okay. So then as I do the calculation, so literally podcast, shift into birthday mode, go to go to the skate sharpening place, drop the skates off. Don't even wait for them. Just drop them off.
Hmm?
Take the kid to the party. Come back to skate sharpening place. Get skates. Maybe I'll hit a McDonald's or a Tim Hortons and I'll do a little bit of my work there. Whatever I can do, spreading papers everywhere, I'll work on something school related. Pick up the kid, go to the game. Guess either an hour before game time. Plays his game, which will be the highlight of my day, watching him play. Then come home. Now, when I come home, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what the climate's going to be like in the house. I don't know what's going on here, but if everything is well, I would like to maybe do a little bit of yard work and then get back to my schoolwork.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my day looks like. So if I just want to sit around and do nothing, it's there's gonna be a price to pay for that. And that wasn't what I was planning on doing this weekend. So anyway, needless to say, I feel like I'm busy, but I'm a busy by life standard, not by my standard. I don't want to be this busy.
You know what? I totally get that. It's like you know, I gotta try and bring this back to my staff. Some people talking about the kind of busy that feels good. What is the kind of busy that feels good? And I start to realize that in order to kind of get any answer to that, is that you have to kind of break down some of the categories of work, grind, bag of things, bunch of things that you actually enjoy doing, and is it possible to sort of like leverage those, keep those on the table all the time? Because this week to me felt like that. Like I felt like I was doing a whole lot of work that I wasn't the center of. I was the center of it is because I had to get it done, but I didn't feel centered in the work. I felt like the best way I can kind of put it was almost like out of body experience. Like somehow I'm doing these things for other people. Which again, I'm saying the same thing again. Our work as teachers is a whole lot of work for other people. But I didn't feel connection to it. And in the on-ramp when we were chatting, I've really started to scrutinize what my workflow, my ideal workflow is, and trying to leverage that. You know what started this thinking was retirement. Yeah,
What?
so two things. Yeah, get this. So two things occurred to me this week. And it just not occurred, but kind of like popped into my head. And there were ideas that I couldn't shake loose. Like they didn't get worked out. It's still in my head. One, thinking about the number of years that I have before retirement. Somehow that popped into my head. And it wasn't reactionary like I need to retire, I need to leave work. It was just a fascination that my brain wouldn't let go of. And the second part was, am I as good at my job as I believe I am? So it's a little bit of an inquiry question. Am I actually as good? Can I say quantitatively that I am as good at my job as I believe I am? And it was when I put those two things together, I sort of came out on the other side looking at what is it that I need to refine, improve, pay attention to with, as I'm thinking, I don't know what it is, like 10, 12, 13 years that I have left before I could potentially retire. Like, how do I want to level up with that time left? So it's sort of looking directly in the eye at the things that I am not very good at right now and asking myself, do I want to improve those things? Do I want to improve my assessment methods? Do I want to improve my relationship building skills? Do I want to improve my understanding of our collective agreements? Do I want to improve on developing my understanding of system information? Like all these things started popping up, and I haven't. Those questions are still on the table, but I had a week that kind of brought that onto my desk. And ultimately, it just became a distraction because I couldn't get to those thoughts as I'm driving to school in the morning, or in the one moment at the end of the day as I'm moving from, because I do most of my teaching out of one classroom, and then at the end of the day, I go to another class to teach my grade 9 strats course. So my brain sort of releases from teacher thinking mode when I walk out of that period 4 class and I walk back to my other classroom. And in that 5 minute, if it's 5 minutes if there's no student, but there's always tons of students in the hall. But let's say in that 5 minute journey, my brain just gets pummeled with all the other stuff, that transitional stuff. Okay, the day's end. Now I'm shifting to dad mode. But part of dad mode is thinking about all those other things that are on your to-do list. Like a week where I didn't feel like I had my hand on the wheel. And the only upside to that I will say is that by not having my hand on the wheel, I had a lot of really interesting thoughts that popped up. Like it was almost like just by saying, okay, let's just walk through this sort of like thought storm this week. There's a lot of interesting thing that pops up. And the two things, like I said, retirement and do I actually want to improve? Do I want to improve my craft? And what specifically within my craft do I want to improve with the time that I have left?
Okay, that's interesting that you would talk about that because a colleague and I had a great conversation yesterday morning that connects to this. He said to me, "How many years you got in, Roland?" I said, "I think this is the start of my 18th." He goes, "You're a lucky man." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because he read somewhere that from 18 on to the end, it it's supposed to get easier because of your perspective on it." I said, "Well, tell me more about this perspective that I'm supposed to have." And he's like, whatever he read said from the hardest years were from 11 to 17 or 11 to 18. And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you know enough, that it irks you when you're not doing it. Um, because in your first 1 to 10, he said you're just learning the craft. You don't really know what you don't know yet. And then it'll hit you between 11 and 18 or 11 and 17. And then you're bothered because of it, because you don't know how to make it all work, because now you know all the things, all the moving parts." And he said from 18 to 30, you see the bigger picture. You see okay, is what I'm doing benefiting the kids in front of me? If the answer is yes, then you do it. If the answer is no, then you find a way to tweak it to make it work. So he's looking at me, he's like, "You're a lucky dog because you're entering the stage of," based on what you read, "you're entering a stage of bigger picture, which means hopefully you'll be more at ease with yourself. You're in a different place with your family." So he's telling me all this, and I'm just looking at him, and he's not the kind of guy that I would have expected this kind of cerebral conversation from. So I was, like looking at him like, is this for real? And then looking at him like, I like this. Because I said, "Well, where are you at?" He goes, "I'm on 16. I'm like, "Yeah, but it sure sounds like you're aware." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm waiting for something more to click in the next few years." I'm like, "Okay." And so he asked me, he said, what was 1 to 10 like for you?" I'm like, "Well, when I think back on it, I do feel like it was just like getting my feet wet, trying to figure it out." And he said, "Well, what was like from 11 to now?" And I said, "I felt like I knew enough to do a good job, but I also knew enough that there were things I wasn't doing that I think maybe I should have tried to integrate somehow." And he's like, "And how do you feel now?" I'm like, "I don't really care about much now." And he's like, "Perfect." And I said, "Well, it's not that I don't care. It's that I see things and I just know enough. Like I know enough. I think, and it may not be the case. I might wake up next year and be like, whoa, I just figured this out now and I'm 19 years in." But I said to him, like, there's always room to grow. And I think that piece has to stay. You have to keep aware of that piece. Because once you think you know, you're in trouble. Because things are changing. Like, look at how things have changed with social media alone. Like, when I started teaching, I would rely on the two people that were teaching the same grade as me, and resources was like I went straight to the library. Now, dude, like the first place I go for a resource is online. I don't need to talk to the two people that teach the same grade anymore. I just send out a tweet, or I've met enough people online that I can connect with people who can refer me to people who are doing great things in around the same grade that I am. So like the networking piece and the resource piece has changed dramatically. And for some of these new people who go right to teachers pay teachers, that's how they do it, right? But before that, it was literally like I'd go to the next door and I'm like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this. Do you know anything about this?" And if they were the keeper of the keys, they knew. And if they weren't the keeper of the keys, they didn't know. Here's a perfect example, another one. In my first couple of years teaching, and I teach in a Catholic system, one of the expectations is that a Catholic teacher can put together a school mass with the right readings and the right music, and you just do it and everything, it runs smoothly. Well, in reality, new Catholic teachers, maybe some old, some of them are scared to death to put together a school mass because it's a big deal. And I remember the first time I was told, "You're running this mass." And I was like, oh boy. And so I remember going to the next door and saying, "Listen, I don't know what I'm doing." Like I learned about it in teachers college, but this is real life. Like if I mess it up here, I have to deal with a priest, a principal, the whole school. Like I got to get readers, I got to get a choir. Like it was big. They said, "Go talk to Anne." And I'm like, "Who's Anne?" They're like, "She's the grade one teacher." Well, tell me more. Well, Anne has been a teacher forever. And Anne has a file folder full of masses that have been prepared over time. And this is her thing. So go talk to Anne. I'll never forget walking down the hall, walking in this grade one classroom, said, "Hey, Anne, I'm Roland," because I didn't know everybody at the time. And I need help. She's like, "What's up?" And I told her, and she's like, "Oh, which mass are you doing?" And then we sat down and she pulled out this file folder that looked like it was about to explode. And she pulled out some resources, said, "Here, use these to guide you. If not even copy them, whatever. These will work. The priest will be okay with these readings and these songs. The principal will be okay with this." And it tells you in the file, talk to this person for this and talk to this person for that. And I took it and I ran with it. And even since then, I have my specialist in religion, religious education. So I remember in part three, they were like, "Okay, you're putting together beginning school mass, middle school mass, year-end mass. That's one of your projects. Go and get it done." And even with that, I still feel this weird feeling inside about putting together a mass. But long story short, that's how it used to go. When I did the end of school year mass last school year with my class and another class, I went online and I did a couple of searches and I found some stuff that seemed to all meld well with our school population. Sent it to the priest, and he was awesome. He said, like, "I like your readings. Would you mind if we changed one reading? Because I really like this reading for this time of the year." I'm like, "Father, you just tell me what you want. I'll make it happen. Like, you're the priest. You're running the show. I'm here to assist. So whatever you want." But he was like, "This is good stuff. Thanks for doing this. Can we just change this thing? Because I prefer such and such." I'm like, "That's cool." And, it worked. It was good. But in the olden days, man, if you didn't know the right person, you had to find the right person. The internet was there, but it was weak still, I believe, in my opinion. The internet was still weak with respect to this type of thing. Anyway, now I don't need to talk to anybody. I mean, it's nice, but I can find what I need online from the people that I've connected with and just the many resources. Like, here's a little tip for you, Chris. Sometimes I go to Teachers Pay Teachers and I find really cool stuff, but I don't buy it. I just take the ideas and what I like, and then I go and I make my own stuff, which I don't sell. I'm happy to give it away. Um, and I even the site is a great resource because you can see stuff and you can see what people have kind of done, and it provides you with like information for your brain to move forward and to create or to throw away, whatever. But it's just another resource, even though I'm not paying for anything. Your mic's off, dude. What are you, a rookie?
Forever a rookie. Forever a rookie. I want to go back to what you said about sort of it made me think about what if there isn't, you mentioned something about growth and something about sort of like the learning and the opportunity, and it just struck me, what if there isn't space to grow? What if you look at your, let's say, your current work or your current thinking about your work, and you say honestly, I don't have the groove or the space to grow anymore. Like I think I'm kind of maxed out on this. And I wonder about, I've mentioned this before in other conversations. I might even blogged about it, about the emotional cost of growth mindset and physical cost, like, you know, the sort of the life cost of growth mindset, and that idea that we actually are kind of boundless in our potential for improvement. And there's more than enough platitudinal posts about saying yes to the day and how failure is awesome, and these things that sort of like, I think are, on one hand, at best for me they're interesting. At worst it suggests an utter blindness to what is, for some people, and for me, I'll say, human limitation. I'm not, and I'm not about to improve, and I'm not capable of improving. And whether or not I feel good or bad about that, I think it's that state of mind. And then you sort of look to the cues around us suggesting that somehow that belief system is taboo, that it could trickle down into your sort of belief about students. But I'm not going to go there. What if it's just you believe about yourself that you're maxed out and that there is no more room for growth? And how might that affect someone's thinking about the opportunity to sort of learn more? How might that shift their thinking about their current workplace? Because I think I'm starting to hit some spaces where I don't know. I don't know if I actually can improve. I don't know if I can actually get better at what, because ultimately the getting better for me has to be in something that I create or deliver. It can't be my fascination and my thinking about my improvement, because that narrative is so skewed and kind of like controlled by my ego. There are things that I tell myself I'm good at that I'm not. I don't know why. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's just I want to feel more confident. Maybe I want to kind of like feel more connected. But there's things that I'm not great at as a teacher. And so if I put those things on a list, like I'm not great at assessment. I'm not great at assessment. I use the basic tools. I understand the basic access points. I understand triangulation, but I don't think I'm rocking it. I know I'm not rocking it. Someone might look at it and say, well, you're rocking it for you. I can't do what you do. But if I push hard on myself, then I say, well, do I actually want to improve that? Do I want to get better at that? And I don't know. And I don't know what the pressure points would be. And it's not a TPA that would, provoke me to do that. Interest in learning, I don't know. Growth mindset, I'm on the fence about that too. I'm not sure what the triggers are at this point in my career, whether I'm at year 15, so I'm creeping up on that checkpoint of being in my 18th year. But I almost get the sense like if I hit that 18th year without a firm understanding of what I'm going to do next, like a commitment to self, I'm going to hit that 18th year and coast. I'm going to keep doing the things. Like that's kind of what I was hearing in your statement, that there's the potential for, it's a little bit easier, but it's not as dynamic. It's you're more comfortable, but does it actually improve confidence? Like there's some tensions there for me in what the dude said. And that is like, I had something similarly said to me, a teacher that was coming back off of paternity leave. She said, you know what? I was stressing about something. She had already taught the courses that I taught. And she said, you know what? When you have kids, teaching gets easier. So she was identifying another one of those sort of like checkpoints, that kind of like checkpoints where you check your head. Like And when I think back on that statement, part of, I think what she was saying had to do with kind of a paradigm shift and a point of view shift, as in what you're now prioritizing is irrevocably different than before. I mean, it's that whole rite of passage thing. You're now a dad, you now have kids. Like, you now, whatever you were putting into school wholly, that is you, will now be subdivided. And you address this, with kids hockey. Like, there's things that there are now non-negotiables that 13 years ago wouldn't have been, they weren't on the table. So yeah, I'm wrestling with what you said, because what if there is, just like there is only so many hours in the day, what if growth actually does have a threshold? What if you actually can't do more? And if you do put together that list of things that, quantitatively, maybe quantitatively, you say, like, I should be able to turn that dial up a little bit. How is that thinking impacted by saying to yourself, well, you know what, I've got like less than 10 years left in my career, or I'm approaching that 18-year mark. How is it that I want to turn that corner?
Um, I heard what you said, and I feel like when you were saying it, I was thinking about myself, and I was thinking about when I feel tapped out, it's usually been because I don't want to give any more time to what it is. Well, I don't think I know enough about anything to be able to say that I've got this growth in this area, and there's no more room for it. Like, I was thinking about what you were saying, and I was applying it to myself, and I was like, I don't think there is anything. What I've come to realize about myself is that when I feel good, that I'm fluent in a particular area, and that I really enjoy that area, and it provides, like, I'm interested in it. I find the next step is to start sharing what I think I know, because then when you put yourself out there, people will hear it and they may respond, and their responses may provide you with a new point for growth, or a new point to reflect on something that you thought you did well or you knew well, but now see it in a different light, which can send you on a different path, which leads to growth. So, like, when I did that, the summer project I did for OWECTA, created a presentation, and just the other day, on Monday, I got to participate in an online session where I got to talk with people about the presentation and what questions or concerns or thoughts they had about the stuff that was in the presentation. And what was really cool for me was I'm literally sitting here and I have no idea what people are going to say. But I was really open. I was really excited for that opportunity, because the opportunity to stand in front of people and to tell them something, that I don't like that. I would prefer if I provided people with my thinking, and then when we meet, that we have a conversation about it, because I feel like there's more room for growth there than there is for me to present something to you. I feel like my presentation can be given to you and you can do what you want with it. And then when we do sit down face to face, you can say, like, I thought about this. This doesn't work for me in my context. What do you think of this? Or I really like this, but I don't know. I need to know more about whatever to make that work. Can you help? Do you know? Do you not know? And what I found was that whole experience of me sitting there, listening to people talk about the things that I provided to them, my brain was literally wide open. I was like literally sitting there like this, like waiting, like, what are you gonna ask? And then they asked some questions which allowed me to confirm for me that I actually knew what I was talking about. In that, I was able to say, like, they would ask their question, and then I was able to take the question and stick it in the part of my brain where I had information that made sense for me to provide to them in that moment in time. And I was able to refer to our ministry document in assessment evaluation, which is there to guide us in our work. So for me, that was a huge moment of growth because all this time, as I've been learning and doing, and like you, feeling like there are parts that I'm really not doing well, or I feel like I don't have the time to give, so I use the basic tools to make it work. I felt like, okay, I think I've arrived at a point now where I feel good about the foundation of what I have. Now, how do I build on that? And I'm not saying I have to. I'm saying for me, the foundation's there. So now I can build because that's what you do with a foundation. You put it down so that whatever you put on top of it's not going to crumble. And so for me, it's kind of cool to walk away thinking, okay, I feel like I have a really solid foundation for A&E, but now the next step is to build on top of it. What that looks like, how big that structure is, who knows, right? But the point for me was I had already done so much growing and so much learning. And then this experience solidified for me some stuff, which maybe would not have been solidified if I hadn't had it. And you have to remember, my learning and my growth in A&E comes from people above me. So I'm here, and the people I've been learning from this whole time have lived here. Now I feel like with this experience, I feel like I'm a little bit closer to these people. They're still here, which is great, but I feel like I now had a way to measure that I have grown, and I'm closer to them in that if someone said to me, like I'm qualified now to teach this AQ course for my association, but I don't feel like I'm qualified at all, right? But this experience gave me a little bit more confidence. Hey, you know your basic stuff. You can refer to the document to provide people with information like this is the way that the ministry would like us to move, right? So if you're not doing that, maybe you might want to consider moving in this direction because this is the mandate. But it's also like I'm in a class with this many kids and these are my problems and these are my strengths. What do I do? And it's like, whoa, you know, that's like you I feel privileged when I'm asked those questions. That people would give me their personal information and then let me try to provide them with ideas. To me, that's privilege. Um, and so there's my growth, right? Like my growth is that I'm learning that I'm in a privileged position based on my knowledge and understanding and my skills. I've learned that I understand certain things that I never really knew I truly understood. So for me, that alone is growth. And that has nothing to do with acquiring new information and just sticking it in my brain. That has to do with interacting with others and then making the connections based on what they're saying, if I have any connections to make. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but for me, that's kind of like, that's always my step too. And maybe that's why I like the blogging and the vlogs and stuff. Like, I think that's truly why I like them. I don't like, I'm not, I don't like putting myself out there. It's scary, right? We've seen what people do to other people on social media. But like the little trick for me is I don't care if Joe Blow doesn't like my blog post, but it's still hard for me to push it out. But for me, that takes me to the next level, I guess, in my learning and in my growth. I want to go back to the 18 to 30 year thing. So my buddy's telling me, so now you'll be seeing a bigger picture. What do you think you're going to do? And I said, well, I might be more inclined to go into administration at that point. He's like, why would you want to do that? I'm like, because I feel like in order to grow a little bit more, I need to do something different, right? And so maybe in the last section, when I can see a bigger picture, I can be a better leader because I kind of maybe be able to see and be able to make those connections that this is my school community. This is what it looks like. Knowing what the what a bigger picture might be or entail, how can I serve the needs of that community? How
Mm.
can I how can I approach what I know and what I'm willing to learn to help like a whole whack of kids and staff. And he's looking at me, he's like, "You're nuts." I'm like, "I'm not nuts. I just have, it's hard for me to see myself. Like, I feel like I've always been growing. So why would I not? Why would I stifle that growth?" I don't know the answer, right? Because that's a whole other piece is changing jobs, doing a job like that requires support of your family and it requires sacrifices. And like at this point in the game, I'm not ready to make some of those sacrifices.
So just, and I know you gotta bust
I gotta
out.
go. Yeah.
So I I I think where you and I are like there's a line, let's say one of the lines between your POV, which I get, but what it reminded me of as you were talking, as you were sort of shaping that all out and sort of like, I get the internet opportunity. I get the, you know, you can choose to walk next door. You can choose to post a good question and people out there are going to kind of help you out. I get all that. I think where I come back to is my drive towards professional growth working against my drive towards personal growth. So if I bring it back to ground dad style, are some of the choices or the compulsions or the drivers that sort of motivate me to think that I should be improving my assessment practice? Is there a connected cost to me spending time developing that craft that's actually obscuring that I need to work on stuff with my family and my own kids? So what I like about his statement, your dude statement, and my dude statement is the reminder that professional growth is always, always working in tandem with personal growth. And that I think for me, the question around, am I actually at my max within professional growth? Is it, do I need to make the hard decision to just not do it? Because I need to take that time, that thinking, that energy, that creativity, all the tools that you mentioned about researching and connecting, and start applying that to my home life. Because we've mentioned before, there's only so many hours in the day, and how we choose to kind of slice them up decides futures, decides opportunity, decides connectivity. And I've always had the question in my head around school is, am I benefiting from school as much as school is benefiting from me? Am I receiving the benefit? Am I receiving benefits from school and sort of opportunity resources? And is in equal measure, does my school, the institution, love me as much as I love my job? Well, I know I got really all the way out there and I'm not looking for a hug right now, but I think this is a part of my broader sort of like philosophical question, as in, should I be spending the time? Should I even be spending the time asking myself, do I want to improve assessment? Is that even wasted time and thought? Because it becomes a rabbit hole from which I need to spend that time on my family stuff.
And that's how you're gonna leave me hanging, eh?
No, I'll show you
I'm
the
not.
picture too.
Okay, because I'm not gonna come back. Oh, I like it. I like it. Stay tuned. Isn't that
Whatever
the
that
sound
means.
it makes on the TV?
Good.
Oh, why are you doing that? The guy buys himself a magnifying glass from the dollar store and now he's going nuts with it.
Value Village.
Oh, sorry, Value Village. Value
Value
Village,
Village.
sorry.
You find really cool things there. So
Okay, so on that note,
yeah.
thanks for that. Man, I could jump all over that, but I'm not going to because I truly do need to go. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we were able to talk. It was a whacked out week. I don't know if you heard it. So Chris called me yesterday at around what 4:30 just to check in, see how things were. And I think I was a shell of myself. I remember you calling and I didn't really talk. I just listened. Um, so
It was a check-in. Every once in a while, I feel like I want to shake up our relationship a little bit. We spend more time, I think, texting. No, maybe it's equal in measure. It's just intensively. Like we sort of do this intensive hour and a half, hour and change on Saturdays, and then text. So we probably actually spend equal time. It's funny though. It's just deregulating it every once in a while. That somehow it's only texting during the week, and then it's like talking on the weekend. So every once in a while, I like to just kind of push those buttons and throw you a phone call.
Right on. Well, have a good weekend, and
You too, dude.
next week might be interesting depending on what happens with QB this week.
I know. Well, maybe we'll have that might be able to take up a little bit of space in our conversation next week. Just sharing some of our observations. But
Okay, well, I'm not touching the controls.
okay, so safe hands.
Safe hands.
I'll chat you soon, dude.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.